Each morning is a sacred invitation, an unmarked field waiting for the first footprints of your awareness. Before the phone lights up, before your name appears in someone else's inbox, before the world reminds you of its noise, something extraordinary is already happening. The universe hands you a blank canvas. The brush is your attention. The colors are your thoughts, your words, your breath. What you paint on it, consciously or not, becomes the landscape of your day. Most people rush through this moment without noticing it. They wake up and step straight into the current of yesterday, unfinished conversations, stress, deadlines, expectations. But the true power of the morning lies in that small, quiet space between sleep and motion. It's a threshold where you are most impressionable, where the mind hasn't yet fastened itself to identity, and where the soul listens before the day begins speaking. What are you telling yourself before the world tells you who you are? This is not a poetic question, it's a practical one, because your inner dialogue is the architect of your outer experience. The tone of your thoughts becomes the tone of your actions, and the tone of your actions becomes the shape of your life. The morning mind, soil for the day. The mind, in the early hours, is like fertile soil after rain, soft, receptive, ready to receive whatever seed you choose to plant. You can sow fear or confidence, scarcity or gratitude, resentment or love. But once planted, those seeds begin to take root through your decisions, your posture, and your responses to everything that follows. When you first wake, your brain is still swimming in slower alpha and theta waves, the same brain states used in deep meditation and visualization practices. This means the subconscious mind is wide open, ready to absorb suggestion. Ancient teachers understood this long before neuroscience caught up. They knew that morning rituals, chanting, breath work, prayer, or quiet reflection were not superstition. They were a way to program the mind before the chaos of the day had a chance to. Modern psychology now echoes what mystics have whispered for centuries. Repetition rewires reality. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the story your nervous system believes. And your body, emotions, and perception of the world all follow the storyline, the power window. There's a small window each morning, a golden hour of alignment when the mind hasn't yet been hijacked by routine. In that space, your thoughts aren't merely commentary, they are creation. Imagine your consciousness as a potter's wheel spinning gently. The clay is soft at dawn. With each word you speak to yourself, you press a shape into that clay. By midday, it begins to harden. By evening, it holds form. If the first words you speak each morning are complaints, the clay sets uneven. If the first thoughts are comparisons or worries, cracks appear before the day even begins. But if your first words are calm, intentional, self-directed reminders of truth, something powerful starts to unfold. Your energy organizes around those words. Your breath deepens. Your nervous system takes cues from your voice and aligns accordingly. Think of it as energetic momentum. Like the first push on a swing, it determines how the rest of the arc unfolds. You don't control the wind or the length of the chain, but that first push decides the rhythm. Mornings work the same way. They set the swing in motion. Language as architecture words are not decoration, they are blueprints. Every sentence you speak to yourself carries instruction to the mind and body. Say, "I can't handle this," and your system begins preparing for collapse. Say, "I've got this," and the body rises with a quiet strength. It's not magic, it's biology. Your brain releases corresponding chemistry, cortisol or dopamine, stress or stability, depending on the story you choose. In this way, your inner language is like the architect's sketch that precedes the building. Each morning, before the construction of your day begins, you draw lines in the air with your words. You decide whether you'll build a cathedral of calm or a house of confusion. And like any good architect, you must begin with clarity of design. The four foundations of morning influence. There's wisdom in keeping it simple. You don't need 30 affirmations or an hour of visualization to reshape your life. You only need awareness of the first four things you say to yourself each day. They form the foundation of your inner architecture. 1. Mood, the emotional atmosphere you wake into. Second, mindset, the lens through which you interpret reality. 3. Discipline, the strength to act in alignment with intention. 4. Destiny, the long-term trajectory shaped by the three above. These four rise together like the legs of a table. If one is weak, the structure wobbles. But if you consciously stabilize them each morning with deliberate thought, your day rests on solid ground. The inner conversation. When you first open your eyes, the mind whispers. Sometimes it's gentle, other times it's impatient or fearful. You might hear echoes like, "I didn't sleep enough," "I have too much to do," or "What's the point?" If left unchecked, those murmurs gather momentum, but in that instant, you can intervene. You can pause and become the author rather than the audience. Try this. Before speaking to anyone else, speak to yourself like a trusted guide, not with empty positivity, but with grounded truth. You might say, "I'm awake," and that alone is a gift. Today, I'll move through what comes with steadiness. I don't need to control everything. I just need to show up with presence. Such language is not fluff, it's recalibration. It signals the nervous system that you are safe, capable, and aligned. Over time, this inner conversation becomes your baseline frequency, the music beneath the noise of life. The science and the spirit ancient tradition saw the morning as sacred. Modern research calls it neurological priming. The principle is the same. Both recognize that what you focus on first directs attention, emotion, and energy for the rest of the day. Meditation, prayer, or gratitude journaling all work because they condition the mind toward coherence rather than chaos. A neuroscientist might say, neurons that fire together wire together. A monk might say, energy follows thought. The language differs, but the law is identical. Repetition creates reality. The Buddha taught that we are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. In modern terms, it's neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt based on experience and repetition. Whether through scripture or science, the truth endures. What you declare becomes the framework of your consciousness. The power of conscious beginnings. If you were sailing a ship, you wouldn't leave the harbor without checking the compass. 1 degree of misalignment at the start may seem small, but over time it leads you miles off course. The same applies to the mind. A single reactive thought in the morning can drift into an entire day of disconnection. A single moment of intention can redirect the entire journey. The first few minutes after waking are your compass check. They determine whether you drift or direct. They are the moment to align with truth before stepping into the winds of the world. Reclaiming the morning. To live intentionally is to reclaim your mornings. To say, "This is my hour of authorship. This is when I choose the script before the world assigns me one." When you begin your day this way, you stop being a character in someone else's story and start becoming the narrator of your own. It's not about perfection or rigid routine. It's about presence, about remembering that consciousness, like clay, takes shape from the hands that mold it early in the day. So tomorrow, when your eyes first open, resist the urge to reach for the world. Instead, reach inward. Listen for the quiet pulse beneath thought. Feel the breath as it arrives. Then plant a few words that honor the life you want to live. Maybe something simple like, "I begin this day with gratitude. My mind is clear. My heart is steady. I choose peace before performance." Then let those words ripple through the body like ink in water, coloring everything they touch. The takeaway. Every morning you're given a sacred moment of authorship. The page is blank, the soil is soft, the clay is wet. What you inscribe in that quiet moment determines the architecture of your day. You don't need external permission, perfect circumstances, or the right playlist. You only need awareness, the willingness to speak truth before the noise begins. As the old masters said and modern psychologists confirm, you become what you repeatedly declare. The first voice you hear each morning sets the rhythm for the rest of the symphony. Make sure it's your own, and make sure it sings of who you truly wish to be. When you wake each morning, you stand at the entrance of your own temple. The air is still, the mind unformed. In that quiet moment before the noise begins, you are both the architect and the inhabitant of what comes next. Every breath, every thought, every word you allow to cross that threshold begins shaping the walls of your inner world. The yielding warrior knows this is sacred work, not a metaphorical nicety, but a daily act of creation. Before the world can tell you who you are, you must decide what kind of space you want to live in today. The architect's morning. Most people begin their day as renters in their own mind. They hand the keys over to circumstance, to the scroll of a phone screen, the weight of an inbox, or the residue of yesterday's stress. They wake up and immediately surrender authorship. The yielding warrior moves differently. We pause before entry. We take inventory. We remind ourselves that the first structure we must build each morning is the structure of mind. The truth is, you can't build anything meaningful on unstable ground. The outer world, your work, your relationships, your dreams, will always mirror the integrity of your inner architecture. You can have a polished surface life and still feel like the floor beneath you is crumbling. The solution is not more achievement, but better construction. That construction begins with awareness. When you wake and sit in stillness, you're surveying the land. You notice where the mind is eroded overnight, what fears have crept in, what stories have reopened like cracks in concrete. This is not weakness, it's maintenance. The greatest builders inspect their foundations daily, building, not borrowing. From a Taoist perspective, life is always moving, shaping, yielding. Your mind, if left unguarded, becomes like an abandoned structure, walls marked by graffiti from other people's opinions. But when you take conscious authorship, your thoughts become deliberate design. You choose which windows to open and which doors to lock. Think of each morning as a return to the drawing board. Yesterday's blueprints no longer fit today's weather. Every day demands new structural awareness. You lay down bricks of thought, gratitude, purpose, courage, and cement them with breath. You reinforce walls with discipline. You hang the artwork of self-respect. You decide which energies are allowed inside. And here's the beauty. You don't have to rebuild the entire temple every day. You just have to maintain it. A few quiet moments of attention, a few conscious breaths, and the foundation remains strong. True power lies within. If this message is bringing you value or helping you see things from a new angle, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who are ready to live, train, and lead with awareness. Most of the world's chaos comes from the misunderstanding that control equals strength. We try to manage everything external, people's opinions, unpredictable outcomes, even the weather of emotion, forgetting that real mastery begins inside. The yielding warrior learns that control of others is fragile, but command of oneself is unbreakable. When you cultivate your inner architecture, you no longer react to every gust of wind. You bend like bamboo rather than snapping like oak. You yield, not to weakness, but to wisdom. To yield is to see clearly that your power is never in the storm, but in your stance. A steady inner structure makes you untouchable to the chaos of circumstance. Traffic can delay you, rejection can sting you, but neither can define you unless you let them through the door. The external world will always knock, sometimes politely, sometimes like thunder, but you are the gatekeeper, guarding the gates. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty. Guard your mind with discipline, design it with clarity, protect it with peace. These are not poetic sentiments, they are the blueprints of a stable life. Discipline means you decide what enters your awareness. You don't allow your mind to become a marketplace for fear or gossip. You curate your attention like a craftsman choosing materials. Only what is strong, pure, and useful belongs in the build. Clarity is the architect's lamp in the fog. It comes from reflection and breath. When you breathe deeply, the dust of confusion settles and the next step becomes visible. Peace is the sealant. It's not the absence of noise, but the decision not to let noise dictate the structure. Peace is what makes the walls of your inner world soundproof to negativity. When you practice these disciplines consistently, your thoughts become either bricks that build or wrecking balls that destroy. Every moment of awareness is a trowel in your hand. You decide which direction the wall grows, creating a sanctuary. The goal isn't perfection, it's sanctuary. Your mind is not meant to be a fortress of control, but a temple of composure. Within it, you cultivate silence, breath, gratitude, awareness, intention, and ownership. Silence gives space for wisdom to echo. Breath resets the rhythm of your nervous system. Gratitude warms the walls so life doesn't feel cold. Awareness is the watchtower that keeps intruders out. Intention is the design plan, the map that prevents chaos. Ownership is what keeps the structure alive because no one else can maintain it for you. As this sanctuary grows within, you become less reactive to the outer weather. Someone else's anger doesn't shake your foundation. Uncertainty no longer leaks through the roof. You stop trying to control the storm and focus instead on the integrity of your shelter. The shift from victimhood to vision. When you understand that you are the architect of your inner world, something subtle but profound occurs. You move from victimhood to vision. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I create from this?" Life will always bring friction, but friction is not punishment. It's part of construction. The yielding warrior uses resistance as refinement. The hammering of challenge strengthens the structure. The chiseling of discipline reveals the sculpture beneath the stone. Each obstacle becomes a design opportunity. Each disappointment becomes a chance to test the architecture of your mind. The daily blueprint. Every morning, reaffirm your role. Stand before your reflection, not as a critic, but as a builder surveying his creation. Speak it into the blueprint of your being. I am the architect of my inner world. Today I build peace, strength, and self-respect. I am the master of my mental kingdom. Say it not as an affirmation of ego, but as a reminder of responsibility. You are declaring ownership of the most important territory you'll ever manage, your own consciousness. In The Yielding Warrior, I often write that true power is quiet power. It's not the roar of control, but the steady hum of alignment. When your inner structure is sound, the outer noise loses its authority. You begin to lead your life the way a mountain holds its form, unmoved by the passing storm, yet shaped beautifully by the wind. Integration and embodiment. Over time, this practice doesn't make you rigid, it makes you clear. Clarity replaces coldness. You become soft in heart, but firm in presence. The world still moves, people still change, but you no longer bend at every emotional gust. Identity, once something reactive and inherited, becomes something consciously built through daily choices. The past stops defining your walls, your present craftsmanship does. And the more you live this way, the quieter the inner noise becomes. Insecurities weaken, the inner voice strengthens. The architecture becomes self-sustaining, a living temple that expands as you evolve. Each thought, each breath, each conscious pause adds another layer of refinement to your design. So when the day begins to pull you in 1,000 directions, remember, you have already built the foundation. The outer world may shake, but the architect remains steady. This is the essence of the yielding warrior, to move through the world with the strength of structure and the softness of flow, to stand rooted in stillness while life moves like wind around you. And it all begins each morning with the simplest, most powerful declaration you can make. I am the architect of my inner world. There's a moment, if you're quiet enough, when you can feel how much of your life has been shaped by the need to prove something, to someone, to everyone, to yourself. The yielding warrior recognizes this as one of the great traps of the modern world, measuring our worth by mirrors that don't belong to us. From the moment we wake, the world starts handing out scorecards. How many followers? How much money? How do you look? Who approved of you today? And without realizing it, we start building our identity from borrowed bricks. But anything constructed from the outside will eventually collapse, because true worth isn't given, it's remembered. The radical act of remembering. In a culture built on comparison, the most radical act is to know your value without needing a receipt. When you stand in the awareness that nothing and no one outside you determines your worth, you break the oldest spell of conditioning. You step out of emotional slavery and into quiet sovereignty. We've been trained to chase worth the way a dog chases its tail, always spinning, never arriving. The lie is seductive, that your value grows when you achieve more, look better, win praise, or earn applause. But all of that worth is conditional, and conditional worth is fragile. When life shifts, and it always does, the applause fades, the title changes, the face in the mirror ages, the market turns, and if your worth was attached to any of it, your peace collapses with it. The yielding warrior learns early that self-worth built on circumstance is like building a temple on sand. Every wave of life will take a piece of it away. But when your worth is rooted in the still ground beneath all movement, you become untouchable. You stop chasing validation and begin cultivating presence. The nature of true worth isn't earned through effort, it's revealed through awareness. You don't become valuable by adding to yourself. You uncover value by peeling away what never belonged. The warrior's worth isn't dependent on medals or recognition. It's in the simple fact of being alive, of breathing, of carrying the potential to love, create, and evolve. Your worth is a birthright, not a reward. It's not a resume. It's the raw essence that existed before you ever achieved or failed at anything. When you understand this, something inside begins to relax. The constant inner hustle, the desperate need to be enough, starts to dissolve. You no longer have to chase mirrors for reflection. You become the mirror itself. The shift from recognition to self-recognition. Once you stop performing for approval, you begin living from alignment. You move from "who will see this" to "is this true for me?" You move from needing recognition to self-recognition. This shift changes everything about how you show up. You no longer beg for love. You become love in motion. You stop seeking applause. You begin living in purpose. You stop measuring your day by how the world responded to you and start measuring it by how honestly you responded to the world. The yielding warrior's worth is not louder than others. It's deeper. It's the calm beneath the surface that doesn't rise or fall with the tides of opinion. Breaking the cycle of emotional bankruptcy. To attach your value to external things is to sign a contract of emotional bankruptcy. The interest rate is high. Every time you please someone at the expense of your peace, you pay. Every time you chase approval instead of truth, you pay. And eventually you end up empty, wondering why the applause feels hollow. This is why so many people succeed and still feel unsatisfied. They've been filling the wrong account. The yielding warrior fills a different one, the inner vault of self-recognition. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not pride, it's peace. It's the understanding that the universe doesn't create anything without purpose, and that includes you. When you know your worth, you move differently. You speak with care, not because you're trying to impress, but because your words carry weight. You give without needing to be seen giving. You serve without self-sacrifice. You love without losing yourself. Living from inner alignment. There's a profound quietness that comes when you no longer need the world to echo back your value. It's not indifference, it's freedom. You can listen to criticism without collapsing. You can celebrate others' success without feeling diminished. You can walk into a room and not shrink to fit it. That's the power of self-declared worth. It stabilizes your nervous system. The yielding warrior practices this every day, standing rooted in breath, anchored in being. You don't have to fight to be seen. You simply are.
Before we continue, I'd love to hear what you think about this concept so far. Don't forget to drop a comment below or let me know if there's a specific meditative topic or principle you'd like me to cover in a future video.
And in that presence, the energy of wholeness becomes magnetic. You begin operating from authenticity instead of desperation. There's no need to push or prove. You start choosing purpose over performance, peace over pressure, alignment over achievement. The practice of returning. Even with this awareness, the world will test you. Someone will criticize, something will fail, an old insecurity will whisper. That's not a sign you've lost your worth. It's a reminder to return to it. Return through the breath, return through stillness, return through the statement that centers everything. I am enough, not because of what I've done, but because of who I am. That's not an affirmation of ego, it's an affirmation of truth. When you remember this, you stop moving like a beggar of validation and start walking like a vessel of purpose. You stop performing to earn belonging and start creating from belonging. You'll notice subtle shifts. You say no without guilt because you understand your worth doesn't require overgiving. You rest without shame because rest doesn't reduce value. You celebrate others genuinely because their light doesn't dim your own. Self-worth as spiritual alignment. From the Taoist view, true worth is harmony, alignment with the natural order of things. The river doesn't ask the mountain if it's worthy to flow. The flower doesn't wait for applause before it blooms. Each simply fulfills its nature. The yielding warrior learns from this. To live in alignment with your true nature is to embody self-worth. You don't need to declare superiority or pretend perfection. You just live truthfully. You realize that arrogance shouts, but real worth whispers, and yet the whisper moves mountains. To know your worth is to recognize your role in the whole. You're not above anyone or beneath anyone. You're simply a note in the greater symphony, playing your part in tune. Freedom from the performance of identity. Most people live as actors playing roles designed to win love. The yielding warrior retires from the performance. When you stop performing, you start living. Freedom is not the absence of opinion, it's the absence of dependence on opinion. You can still enjoy praise, still welcome recognition, but they no longer feed your sense of being. They become seasoning, not sustenance. When your worth is internal, everything external becomes bonus, not oxygen. That's when peace becomes your baseline state, not the prize at the end of a struggle, but the foundation beneath your steps. The energy of wholeness. Wholeness isn't a state you reach, it's the truth you return to. It's the space where your inner dialogue finally quiets and you realize you never needed fixing. You were never missing anything. You just forgot how complete you already were. From that energy, you lead differently. You communicate without defense. You teach without ego. You love without fear. And because your worth no longer wavers, your presence becomes a stabilizing force for others. People sense it. They feel safe around you, even if they don't know why. The Yielding Warrior's Declaration. At the end of your morning reflection, after you've built your inner world, this is the second truth to anchor. Nothing and no one outside me determines my worth. Say it with the weight of remembrance, not performance. Let it echo through your breath until your body believes it. Then seal it with the quiet conviction that forms the backbone of the yielding warrior's walk. I am whole. I am worthy. I am complete, not because of what you've done, not because anyone said so, but because it could never be otherwise. This is unshakable confidence, not reactive, but chosen. It's the calm power of someone who has stopped auditioning for life and started living it. There's a quiet kind of power that comes when you stop searching for something that was never lost. The yielding warrior knows this moment well, the point when the chase ends and the remembering begins. The world will try to convince you that you are missing something, more time, more training, more money, more confidence. But the deeper truth is this: everything you will ever need has already been planted within you. Life did not send you here unfinished. You arrived equipped. You simply forgot how to access the tools. The lie of more. We live in a culture of accumulation. The message is constant and clear. You're almost there, but not quite. You just need one more course, one more degree, one more follower, one more miracle. It's an exhausting game of almost, where enoughness is always waiting on the other side of another achievement. But the warrior sees through the illusion. This belief that fulfillment lives somewhere outside of you is the mind's clever way of postponing peace. It creates endless movement but no arrival. You keep climbing the same mountain, not realizing the summit was never out there. It's been inside you the whole time, hidden beneath layers of comparison and doubt. Everything I need is already within me. This is not an escape from effort. It's an invitation to return to source. When you understand this, your work, your relationships, and your spiritual practice stop being quests to fill an inner void and become expressions of an already whole being. The birthright of wholeness. From the moment you drew your first breath, you were given everything required to meet the journey ahead: strength, courage, creativity, and resilience. They were part of the original design. They don't come from books or approval, they come from presence. Life equipped you for the exact terrain you were meant to walk. The problem isn't lack, it's access. We lose touch with our inner resources when we live too far outside ourselves. We chase validation, we drown in noise, and we forget that peace is not something to earn, it's something to remember. When you sit in stillness each morning, before the weight of the world lands on your shoulders, remind yourself, I am not broken, I am not behind, I am not missing anything. You're simply returning to alignment. The same way a river doesn't have to chase its source, it just flows back to it. The energy of returning. The journey of the yielding warrior is not about becoming something greater. It's about yielding back into what's already true. The ego always wants to climb higher. The spirit just wants to come home. Every breath you take in stillness is a step back toward that center, the calm strength that never left you. This is why silence matters. The inner voice, the one that's calm, grounded, and quietly certain, can't be heard in a world that's constantly shouting more. You have to step out of the noise to hear it again. That voice isn't the voice of motivation, it's the voice of knowing. It's the same voice that steadied you during your hardest seasons, the one that whispered, keep going, even when everything else said stop. When you remember that this voice has always been there, you begin to trust it. And when you trust it, you stop reacting to life's chaos and start responding with precision. From reactivity to responsiveness. Most people live like emotional pinballs, bouncing between highs and lows, chasing pleasure, running from pain. The warrior learns to move differently. Instead of reacting from lack, you respond from wholeness. Reactivity says, I must fix this to feel better. Responsiveness says, I already have what I need to meet this. It's a subtle but powerful shift. It means when challenges come, and they will, you don't reach for escape. You reach inward for endurance. When fear rises, you call on courage. When confusion sets in, you breathe into clarity. When failure stings, you draw from humility. When chaos surrounds you, you root into stillness. This is what it means to live from within, to meet life with the resources that were built into your design. Turning wounds into wisdom. The warrior also understands that the cracks in the armor are not weaknesses. They're where the light enters. Scars and setbacks are not evidence of brokenness. They're proof of resilience. Every wound has the potential to become a window if you stop hiding it and start learning from it. When you look back on your life, you'll see that every difficult chapter refined something essential: patience, empathy, compassion, strength. What you once thought was breaking you was actually shaping you. Like a sword tempered in flame, each trial was a forging, not a punishment. When you start to see it this way, you no longer resent the past. You harvest it. You take the lessons, the insight, the depth, and you weave them into your being. They become part of your inner architecture, living from the center. Living with the truth that everything you need is already within you doesn't mean you reject help or deny connection. The yielding warrior understands healthy interdependence. We can learn from teachers, receive love from others, and work with mentors, but we don't outsource our identity to them. We collaborate from wholeness, not from emptiness. When your peace depends on others' presence, it becomes fragile. But when your peace lives inside you, it becomes portable. You can take it anywhere, through noise, through change, through solitude. That's when you stop fearing the unknown. Because no matter where you go, you've brought your home with you. The power of embodied presence. The greatest sign that you've remembered your inner completeness is that you stop performing. You no longer act out strength. You embody it. You no longer pretend to be confident. You simply move with quiet certainty. The yielding warrior practices moving through life like still water, calm, clear, and unforced. Every motion is intentional. Every word carries weight. You stop reaching for external permission and start creating from internal alignment. When you move this way, life starts to flow around you differently. You no longer force outcomes. You no longer need to convince anyone of your value. You act with clarity because the source of your action isn't fear, it's fullness. Wholeness in action. To live this truth is to walk through the day knowing that peace and strength aren't goals. They're the natural state of an undivided self. You stop trying to earn your way to worthiness. You stop searching for teachers who can give you what you already possess. You begin instead to cultivate what's been waiting patiently inside you all along. Your creativity, intuition, and courage aren't skills to acquire, they're frequencies to access. You access them through stillness, presence, and trust. And as you live from that place, a quiet certainty begins to replace striving. You find that life's answers come not from searching, but from listening. The morning reminder. Each morning, return to this simple truth before the day starts pulling you into its performance. I am not empty. I am not lacking. I am not waiting. Everything I need is already within me. Say it until the body relaxes and the breath deepens. Feel it not as a mantra to memorize, but as a truth to inhabit. Let the words echo through the chambers of your being until you remember that you were never missing anything at all. You'll still grow, still learn, still refine, but from fullness, not from lack. That's the difference. Growth from lack creates exhaustion. Growth from wholeness creates peace. The outcome of inner trust. When you live from this understanding, you stop fighting the current of life. You start moving with it. The world around you may still change, but the center within you stays steady. You begin to feel guided rather than desperate, connected rather than clinging. This is the calm confidence of the yielding warrior, not the loud certainty of control, but the quiet assurance of alignment. You walk through the day rooted in the awareness that life isn't happening to you or for you, but through you. And when you move from that space, you realize nothing is missing, nothing was ever missing, and everything you were searching for has been quietly waiting inside, ready for you to remember it. Everywhere you look, the world is sprinting. Speed is worshipped. Metrics define meaning. Productivity has become a form of prayer. We're told that to be successful, we must chase more money, more followers, more validation, more proof. But the yielding warrior knows that chasing is the fastest path to exhaustion. The real mastery lies in planting. To plant energy is to move from control to contribution, from obsession with the harvest to devotion to the soil. It's the practice of shifting your focus from what might come to how you show up now, from chasing to cultivating. The world glorifies the chase. Hustle culture tells us that stillness is laziness and patience is weakness, but look closely at nature. The oak tree doesn't chase the sunlight, It grows toward it. The river doesn't race to the ocean, it flows with it. Power in nature is rarely frantic. It's steady, rhythmic, and surrendered to a greater order. When you start your day by saying, "Today I plant energy, I don't chase outcomes," you reclaim your peace from the addiction of control. You remember that the only thing you truly own is the energy you bring to each moment. Everything else, results, recognition, timing, is outside your jurisdiction. This isn't passivity, it's precision. The yielding warrior doesn't sit idle, waiting for destiny. We show up fully and let destiny meet us in motion. The currency of energy. Energy is sacred currency. It's the one resource you can spend consciously or waste unconsciously. Every thought, every action, every word is an investment. When you plant clean energy, meaning intention without attachment, you create ripples that move far beyond your awareness. Chasing outcomes, on the other hand, contaminates the energy field. It's rooted in fear. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? That frequency creates resistance. The more you force, the more life resists you. Planting energy means you align your inner frequency before you act. You breathe, ground, focus, and then move. When you work from that vibration, your actions carry power that frantic effort can't touch. The freedom in letting go of control. Chasing is a symptom of mistrust. When we don't trust the process, we grab the wheel tighter. But yielding isn't about giving up control. It's about giving up the illusion of control. When you release your grip on outcomes, you stop bleeding energy through anxiety and overthinking. You stop asking, "Will this work?" and begin asking, "Am I giving my full presence right now?" This is the heart of all great performance, whether in athletics, leadership, or art. The outcome takes care of itself when the energy behind it is pure. Pressure constricts flow, presence amplifies it. The yielding warrior lives by this code. What I plant in integrity will grow in its season. The rhythm of growth nature teaches that growth is never instant. It's rhythmic, cyclical, and sacred. Some seeds sprout overnight, others germinate in darkness for months. Roots always form before branches. Our problem is not that growth takes time. It's that we demand to see it before it's ready. The impatience to measure progress kills the miracle before it ripens. But when you trust the rhythm of life, you stop digging up the soil every morning to see if your seed is growing. You water it, tend it, and let time do what time does. Some results will come quickly, an unexpected opportunity, a moment of insight. Others will take longer, projects, relationships, inner transformation. But all follow the same law: energy first, manifestation second. The trust factor. Trust is the superpower of aligned living. To trust is to know that unseen progress is still progress. It's understanding that silence doesn't mean stagnation, it often means rootings. When you plant energy with full integrity, even unseen efforts are building something. Every meditation, every act of patience, every time you choose peace instead of panic, you're strengthening invisible roots that will one day support visible results. The yielding warrior doesn't force the flower to bloom. We align with the season, we cultivate the soil, we trust the process, and because of that, our results arrive with less strain and more grace. The cultivator and the chaser. The difference between a cultivator and a chaser is not effort, it's energy. The chaser wakes up in a rush, driven by fear of falling behind. They scatter attention in 1,000 directions, constantly measuring their worth by results. They are loud, restless, and easily discouraged when things don't unfold on their timeline. The cultivator, on the other hand, wakes with focus and breath. They move with rhythm, not urgency. They tend to what matters, pour energy where it belongs, and let go of what doesn't. They are grounded, patient, purposeful. They understand that rushing weakens roots. When you embody the cultivator's mindset, your actions become nourishment, not depletion. You're not pushing against the current, you're flowing with it. The power of still energy. Stillness isn't stagnation, It's containment. The most powerful rivers begin as still lakes. Stillness collects force. It allows energy to build, refine, and focus before release. When you operate from stillness, every movement counts. You no longer waste effort trying to manipulate outcomes. You place deliberate energy into what you can influence: your attitude, your preparation, your alignment. This kind of energy becomes magnetic. People feel it, opportunities align with it. Life begins to cooperate because you are no longer sending mixed signals of fear and force. When you stop chasing, you start attracting, not because you're lucky, but because your frequency has stabilized. The Tao calls this Wu Wei, action without struggle, doing through being, redefining success. The yielding warrior measures success not by speed, but by sincerity, not by control, but by consistency, not by how much we accomplish, but by how deeply we show up. When you operate from this truth, you realize that the question, will this work, is the wrong one. The real question is, am I giving my best energy now? If the answer is yes, you've already succeeded, because what you give to the moment is the only thing that ever truly belongs to you. Aligned energy always produces aligned outcomes, maybe not on your timeline, but on the right one. The seed doesn't rush the sun, it trusts it. The morning practice. Each morning, before you dive into the day's demands, plant your intention in the soil of awareness. Today, I plant energy. I don't chase outcomes. I release expectations and work with love, not pressure. Then carry that energy into your actions. Whether you're leading a team, training your body, or simply moving through daily life, keep your focus on the quality of your energy, not the quantity of your results. When the day ends, don't measure it by numbers or applause. Ask instead, did I give fully? Did I stay true to my center? Did I act with love and presence? If so, you've done your work. The harvest will come, the yielding way. When you stop forcing, outcomes begin to align naturally. Because the universe doesn't respond to panic, it responds to presence. You plant your energy like a farmer who trusts the soil, like an artist who trusts the process, like a warrior who trusts the training. You stop living as a hunter chasing prey and begin living as a gardener cultivating peace. And in that calm, deliberate rhythm, you discover something profound. The outcomes you once chased begin chasing you, not because you demanded them, but because your energy finally matched the life you were meant to live. Spiritual and philosophical roots of morning power. Every generation of truth seekers, from warriors to monks to poets, has discovered the same secret. How you meet the morning determines how the world meets you. Dawn has always belonged to those who move with intention. It's not superstition, it's synchronization. The early hours are when your internal rhythm still moves with the rhythm of life itself. Before clocks, before alarms, before inboxes, people listened to the light. The first glow wasn't just a signal to rise, it was a reminder that creation happens every day. Morning was the rehearsal for the universe's next breath. The Eastern Way, the strength of still beginnings. In the Eastern arts, the morning isn't something to get through, it's the forge. Shaolin monks began their practice at sunrise, not because it was convenient, but because that's when qi, the life current, moves with its greatest purity. The early stillness was their laboratory for mastery. You can feel that same principle when you begin your day with breathwork or standing meditation. The body isn't being trained to fight the world. It's learning to yield to it without losing center. Zen calls this first mind, the open, unfixed awareness that exists before identity wakes up. To touch that space, even for a few moments, is to remember that who you are is deeper than your thoughts. When you sit in stillness before the sun fully rises, the entire planet feels like it's holding its breath with you.
If you're resonating with these ideas and want to take your training deeper, check out the Yielding Warrior monthly membership through the link in the description. You'll learn how to integrate these concepts into your daily life with guided practices, meditations, and lessons designed to help you master the art of yielding.
The Vedic view, Breath as belonging. In the Vedic traditions of India, the morning was seen as the hour of remembering. Before the mind gathered its noise, practitioners would whisper, Soham, I am that, not as a statement of pride, but of belonging. It was a way of anchoring into the truth that the same pulse that moves the stars also beats in your chest. You can experience that same realization today through simple awareness. One breath in, one breath out, no division between you and the living world. The yielding warrior learns that this kind of connection doesn't come from belief, it comes from participation. When you breathe with the sunrise, you're not watching life, you're joining it. The Western mystics, the power of solitude. When you study the life of Jesus or the desert fathers who followed his example, you see a pattern. The great work was always preceded by solitude. He prayed before the crowds arrived. He withdrew before the noise could dictate his direction. That quiet wasn't escape, it was calibration. The Psalms describe early prayer not as an obligation, but as a collaboration. In the morning, I lay my intentions before you and wait expectantly. That waiting wasn't passive. It was a posture of trust. The same applies in your own morning ritual. When you enter the day from stillness rather than haste, your actions begin to carry a different frequency, less reaction, more resonance. The dawn of devotion, the Islamic and Jewish practices. In Islam, the pre-dawn prayer isn't just discipline, it's devotion in motion. The world is still half asleep, yet the faithful rise to speak truth into a sky that hasn't yet taken color. It's a daily declaration. I will align before I act. Judaism offers a parallel with Modeh Ani, a short phrase spoken upon waking. I thank you for returning my soul. That single breath of gratitude resets the nervous system before the mind even begins its sprint. Imagine beginning your day that way. Gratitude first, goals second. Gratitude in the morning is not a ritual of religion, it's a technology of energy. It stabilizes the heart, slows the breath, and reminds the body that it's already supported by something larger. The first light of the people, indigenous and earth traditions. Long before organized religion, those living close to the land rose with the sun out of reverence, not routine. They faced the east, not to worship the light, but to remember they were light. Sunrise was seen as a living ceremony, the renewal of the covenant between human and earth. In those traditions, morning isn't about productivity, it's about participation. You step outside, you feel the ground under your feet, you breathe the cool air into your lungs, and you remember, this day doesn't owe you anything, it's a gift. When you live this way, your morning practice becomes less about performance and more about relationship. You stop doing spirituality and start being in it. The warrior's reflection, stoic yet still. Even the Stoics, grounded in reason rather than mysticism, saw dawn as the hour of mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote of waking with gratitude for breath and choice, knowing that every new day was a fresh opportunity to practice virtue. But for him, the ritual wasn't about religion, it was about readiness. This mirrors the yielding warrior's approach. We don't armor up for battle, we align for balance. We prepare not to control the day, but to meet it with composure. That's the quiet power that separates force from flow. A universal understanding, the language of light strip away, the names, the robes, and the rituals, and you find the same message echoed across continents and centuries. The morning is not random, it's sacred space. The first thoughts you think, the first breath you take, the first movement of your awareness, these are creative acts. They set the tone for the entire symphony of your day. Every tradition, in its own language, tells us the same thing. Your words at dawn are spells, your thoughts are blueprints, and your silence is a bridge between what is and what could be. The yielding warrior honors this by keeping the mornings intentional, not necessarily long, but meaningful. A few quiet minutes to breathe, to listen, to remember. The mind is soft clay. Shape it consciously. The heart is open soil. Plant gratitude, not worry. The body is the altar. Honor it with breath, not haste. The details of tradition differ, but the current underneath is one. Whether you light incense, whisper a prayer, or simply breathe at the window as dawn breaks, you are participating in the oldest human practice there is, meeting creation as it happens. Every sunrise is the universe saying, "Let's begin again." And every time you answer with stillness, with awareness, with gratitude, you say, "Yes." Let's the four affirmations as living invocations. There's a reason these four affirmations feel like more than positive thinking. They're not slogans for motivation. They're ancient codes written in modern language. When spoken with presence, they echo truths that teachers across centuries have been trying to remind us of. The yielding warrior doesn't repeat them as superstition or self-hypnosis, but as daily alignments, short bridges back to the source. I am the architect of my inner world. Every tradition begins with the mind. In the Buddhist canon, it's said that the mind is the forerunner of all things. Before a single action unfolds, the inner landscape has already drawn the map. To a warrior of awareness, this means the outer battle is always secondary. You design your experience through attention, through the quality of the thoughts you allow to take residence. To live this truth, you don't need robes or mantras. You need mindfulness in motion. You become the architect not just during meditation, but while driving, working, teaching, training. You notice when fear tries to draw the blueprint, and you pick up the pencil again. Nothing and no one outside me determines my worth. This echoes the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, that the wise remain steady amid both praise and blame. The yielding warrior recognizes that worth anchored in the external world is worth on borrowed time. You can't control the tide of public opinion, but you can control the depth of your anchor. Every time you stop performing for approval and start moving from alignment, you practice this affirmation. It's not withdrawal, it's freedom. You engage with the world not for validation, but from contribution. You know your value the way a mountain knows its height, without the need for witnesses. Everything I need is already within me. This teaching lives at the heart of the Upanishads. The ancient sages spoke of Atman, the individual soul, as not separate from Brahman, the infinite reality. In simpler terms, the same current that animates the stars runs through your veins. The yielding warrior doesn't chase energy from the outside, he cultivates it from within. Living this means replacing the language of lack with the language of remembrance. Instead of asking, "What's missing?" you begin to ask, "What's waiting to be used?" You stop treating life as a scavenger hunt for completion and start treating it as a daily practice of uncovering. Today, I plant energy. I don't chase outcomes. The Taoists and Zen masters both taught this through the principle of Wu Wei, effortless action. The warrior's task is not to force, but to align, to do the work, but to release the demand that it unfold on your schedule. In your practice, this looks like full presence without grasping. Whether teaching, training, or leading, you give everything, but you don't give it away. You let your energy flow through the work, not into anxiety about the result. What you plant in peace will grow in its season. The bridge from words to being. But knowing the phrases isn't the point. Living them is. The yielding warrior treats these four affirmations as tools, not trophies. They're meant to be carried into the friction of real life, the deadlines, the fatigue, the uncertainty. That's where they take shape. Each statement is a posture. I am the architect. I choose how to interpret what happens. Nothing outside determines my worth. I stay rooted in internal truth. Everything I need is within me. I respond from resourcefulness, not reactivity. I plant energy, not chase outcomes. I give my best and let go. Said once, they sound like hope. Lived daily, they become power. Integrating the practice morning recitation is the ignition, but the real work happens when the world tests what you've spoken, when a conversation stings, when progress feels slow, when you're tempted to scroll, doubt, or overreact. That's when these truths earn their weight. Every challenge is an invitation to embody one of the four. You remember that your inner world is under construction. You recall that your worth isn't up for auction. You reach for the quiet strength inside rather than panic. And you refocus on energy, not outcome. This is where the practice becomes alive, when philosophy becomes muscle memory, daily guidance from the yielding path. Make your mornings sacred. They are the reset point between who you were yesterday and who you can be today. Even 5 minutes of stillness can anchor your day in clarity. Practice stillness before stimulation. The phone, the news, the noise, they all want to build your day for you. Return to your blueprint first. Be patient with growth. Progress rarely moves in straight lines. Some days the seed seems dormant, but roots are forming. Guard your mental space. It is not a dumping ground. It's a temple. Treat it that way. The yielding warrior knows that these truths are not meant to be memorized. They're meant to be embodied. They start as words, then they become choices. Eventually, they become the way you move through the world, calm, grounded, clear, and quietly powerful. When you live these affirmations instead of simply reciting them, you stop chasing spiritual moments and start living a spiritual life. Morning becomes less about getting centered and more about being centered. The day no longer pulls you off course, you guide it. Because these four truths are not just affirmations, they are directions home.